Welcome to another episode of Top Lines and Tails, and this week, as always, we're kindly sponsored by Harborough, suppliers and manufacturers of quality livestock nutrition. And on this week's programme, we're still continuing with our series looking at characters in livestock, and in this particular instance, talking to them, because I have, as a very special guest this week, old friend and top veteran sheep breeder, Lionel Organ. Lionel, I hope you don't mind me referring to you as a veteran. Welcome to the programme.
Well, I suppose that's where the category I belong to anyway.
Though not retired now, you're just telling me you're still lambing.
I don't know how to do that. That's I haven't found it. Nobody's taught me how to do it, and so I keep going.
We'll come on to your sheep in a minute, Lionel. But of course, when I first knew you, you were in the pig business in a big way, and back in Cheltenham in those days in Southam. And when did you start in the pig business, Lionel?
Well, actually, when I was a teenager, we bought a few just for fun. I have pedigree. Used to be a big breeder near us called Alexander and Angel, and they used to win everything. And for some strange reason, my father, who wasn't a pig lover, because we had a big dairy herd at the time, and he said, would you like some pigs? He said, anyway, off we went. I bought 3 pedigree sows. That would have been in probably a late 50s, I suppose, yes. Okay. And I left school in the mid-50s. They were large whites, and I just fell in love with them, and away we went, and things just grew and grew and grew and grew, and so did all the work we put into it. And they became, a major component of our farming business.
Yeah. Well, how many sows did you get up to, Lionel?
Well, when I sold up, it wasn't what we call a seller's market. We'd achieved just about all we could achieve in the pig industry, but we got out in the early 90s when the bottom fell out of the industry. Mm-hmm. We were running nearly 200 sows then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We had a tremendous trade for breeding stock, but
I was going to say they weren't killers, were they? You'd be selling breeding stock throughout the place and exporting, I'm sure.
Yes, we used to export a hell of a lot. And we also used to have a big demand on the home market. Commercial market was strong. We used to sell about 350 boars a year, and probably, I can't remember, well over 1,000 females, because we had a multiplier who was breeding crossbreds mainly for the outdoor herds,
right,
as well as our nucleus, which we called ours at home. And it became, it was good business. It was doing well. It was paying well. And suddenly, bang, a bottom fell out, and that was the end of the industry. And nobody came running to our aid. No tears shed by government or anybody. The job just went on. People were going bust everywhere. I was left owing thousands from customers. There was one of these kindly breeders who was fool enough to say, well, I'll let you have some more, but you must pay me sometime, and this sort of thing. You knew when that was happening. I got to learn that they were going bust.
They were going down, yeah.
And we were losing there, but there it is. It was sad, very sad. The industry was running at, must have been close to 60% self-sufficiency when it collapsed.
Really?
I don't suppose we're much more than 6% now.
No, my grandfather was in pigs, as you probably know. He was in pigs when I left school in the 70s. We had 1,000 pigs on the farm, and I remember them getting to a stage when they were losing a pound a pig, and he said, enough's enough, and they just all went at pretty much the same time. But that would be before you. That would be probably, they went in the middle 80s, I think.
It would be, yeah, because we were killing about 100 a week of bacon, the ones that didn't come up to breeding standards. And they were losing us about good 12 or 14 pound a head we stuck that for as long as we dare.
You can't carry on. And of course, for our American listeners, if we put a little bit of substance around all the pig breeding business went off to Denmark, didn't it? And the EU subsidies all went to, which they probably still get, I guess, in Denmark and Holland, and no subsidies in the UK.
You've got it all. Yeah, it's all. That's exactly what happened. And I think we were sort of quite happy, the EU, to let us disappear and keep the pig industry in mainland and leave us to produce what suited our climate, the sheep and beef.
Yeah. That's right, and they emphasised on that, didn't they? Put the money in the sheep, and especially, and everybody turned to be hill farmers instead when they're getting £30 for keeping £30 a head for keeping a ewe on the hill and nothing for keeping a sow. And
I can never ever get that over the stupidity of a system, a subsidy system of paying on headage, but. I don't blame those that abused it and did living well out of it, mind you.
Yes.
I mean, the temptation was there. I mean, there were thousands of ewes were never bred from.
Great tales of them running them around the mountain with the dog, and then taking the guy in the house for a cup of tea and running the same flock round him again and counting them twice. We've all heard those stories.
When they were paying on ewe headage, I know people who just kept thousands of ewes. They were putting them in everywhere they could, and. They just didn't breed from many of them.
They're worth £2 a piece, and they're getting £30 a year for keeping them. I know it was nonsense. Let's just go back to the pigs a little bit. Lionel, when I first met you, as I said, came across you anyway. You were showing at Smithfield, and I was at Smithfield as well. And that was a great place, wasn't it? And I think you had your run of triumph there, didn't you, down at Royal Smithfield Show in Oscott?
Yeah, we used to go there. And exhibit the Lance Whitesall in those days, and we exhibited live and dead. The aim was hopefully we could try and win the live and the dead at the same event, because it was my belief that just winning a shows you had to tie it in with carcass success as well to be able to claim that you were good at your job. It was, and that's what we did successfully over so many years, was winning live and dead, and we did manage to achieve. Smithfield, we won the breed and interbreeds there on several occasions, and the carcass, either the pork or bacon or both, over several occasions. And that was at Earl's Court. It was a major event up there then.
They'll get cups you'd win out of there in those days too, Lionel. You'd have a lot of fun too, as we all talk about on this program. Man. The fun was incredible.
I made so many friends. You would be in the ring and you'd murder each other in the ring, and at night you go out on the town and and you were the best of friends, whether you want to beat them or not.
Interesting thing showing pigs though, isn't it? I mean, I know some of the pig breeders are mischievous, but pigs are a mischievous thing. They're clever, aren't they? But they're mischievous. They'll be running away as soon as they bloody think about it, can't they?
Oh God, they were tricky. We used to, of course, use the old apples at Smithfield, an apple in each hand with a glove on, with gloves on, for obvious reason. But no, actually, the Royal Show was the best we achieved with pigs. They're aiming to win the live championship and the carcass, and they staged a superb carcass competition for, I can't remember how many years, it might be 6 or 8 years, maybe no more than 6. I can't remember, it's a long time ago. But the thing was, they were asking for the best 3 pork carcasses in the pork competition, and the best 3 bacon in the bacon, and that was suiting us, because we, without boasting, we could get 3 good identical carcasses to exhibit. And a lot of people, a lot of the hybrid companies used to exhibit carcasses there as well as breeders, and we won that carcass competition. Sometimes the pork and the bacon on more than one occasion. We won both, and most of the occasions of that competition was staged, we did win the bacon, best of 3 carcasses, all the pork. But the idea was try and get it combined with the live in the ring, and we managed to do that as well. In fact, I got presented to the Queen Mother, who was patron of the show in those days, and I got presented to her so many times that she recognised me. And she said, "Yes, you're the man from Cheltenham, aren't you? You live by Cheltenham Racecourse." I said, "Yes, ma'am, that's exactly where I live." As you remember, we chatted about it last year.
Yeah, she was brilliant in that, and the same in Smithfield. She'd come along and she would remember. She'd remember a lot of people, I know. And of course, the pigs, showing them live and dead. We have this in the cattle side of it as well, but the cattle are also groomed up and dressed up, that very often there's a lot of show and hair and very little carcass, and that was very rare. You'd see them, the same person win. There was a live and dead competition. I think Julian Hopwood would be as good as anybody in the cattle, but difficult thing to do in I suppose in the pigs. There wasn't quite so much dressing on the live pigs. That's probably what I'm saying.
Well, you just have to wash them off and put a bit of white wood flour on, and then brush that off, and they look snowy white, beautiful. But you couldn't hide everything. Everything was on view because there wasn't any wool on them.
No. I do remember a counterpart of yours, probably in later life anyway, Cyril Miller in Ireland, and Cyril
Oh yeah.
helping him clip a pig, I think, at one of the shows there, and taking the shears to fetch the hair off it, because he didn't like it. I know the pig didn't like it.
Oh, so yeah, great show, and he's still around.
And like in the pig business as well, Lionel, there would have been a change. You said you went in the 50s and came out in the 90s, and you'd have seen almost the reversal of a pig carcass. A pig naturally is a heavy front-ended creature, isn't it? And it was all about breeding the bigger and bigger back ends. And I know a lot of science went into that, but would there be genes that you would breed from, or would you inbreed? It's an interesting concept as to how you change actually physically change the shape of the carcass over generations.
Well, so we had to turn the shape of the carcass around, as you just pointed out. They had to get the lighter depth through the heart and the wedge shape, and filling out to the great depth of the rear end. But the thing is, you say inbreeding. Well, we call it line breeding.
Yeah, well, sure enough.
Inbreeding when it failed. But we used to do a lot of line breeding. I used to select all. I rarely bought an outside boar very rarely bought one in after I'd been developing the type of pig that the industry would move towards. In fact, without boasting, we did quite pioneer the type of pig of the future at an early enough date to
you did.
Benefit a lot from that. And that was winning the carcass competitions. These carcass competitions, it used to amaze me where, you had to have a long pig without sacrificing any flesh for being long, because you were paid in the carcass competition. They give you 15 points on a scale, based on a scale, and 15 points length for weight. And they were, it was a scale, and you had to have those 15 points to win these carcass competitions, as well as having a great big eye muscle, shallow forend, big eye muscle, as deep as you could get it, and a streaky, which was very thick and mainly lean, interlaced with streaks of fat.
Cool.
And a great big eye muscle, I said, and this damn great big jiggy. Now, this is what we were aiming at, and it did result in us keeping our own bloodlines and doing close breeding. And it does come because you're not going to undo these things. If you're moving in that direction, you'll only select your best boars that are possessing that design that you're looking for. We had everything was recorded, and initially with PIDA, and then it became MLC. Everything was recorded and everything was scanned. This was the back fats. I used to measure the back fats and the muscle.
Long before they did it in sheep, Lionel.
Oh yes, it was 20 years before, at least 20 odd years. Yeah, because everything about the pigs we used to sell for breeding, they were fully evaluated in the depth of shoulder fat, loin fat, the area of eye muscle, which we only get depth on a sheep measured. Without you can go to the CT scanner nowadays, but that wasn't heard of then. But we had this scanning going, and the pig based on weight for age and everything, and various other items, and all these measurements they took. It was indexed, and we used to sell on index, and all these. It'd be quite different if people come and buy the rams. They want to come and pick them personally. In those days, when the pig industry, some of my customers are buying 5, 6, 8, 10 boars a month. They were big, and they were all bought over the phone on index. And I'm pleased to say we had a very, very reliable reputation that they could buy safely on index without being disappointed with what turned up on their farm. We used to deliver all these animals. They never used to come to us, very rarely.
Right.
And but we were a high health status breeding unit, so we couldn't actually just traipse buyers around the unit. For those that insist on coming to pick their own, we did have a display area where they could see them, but they couldn't touch them.
But you didn't have on-farm sales or anything like that. Most of it was sold privately.
No, no, the only sales we had, we had tremendous on-farm sales, but not auction sales, farm gate sales then.
Yeah.
But we used to attend all the National Pig Breeders Association main events, which pleased to say we won most of them most of the time.
You were the top breeder. I know I've sort of looked back and did a little bit of research of this, and you were the sort of number one breeder in Europe, I would say, certainly for large whites anyway. And as you said, with that technology at your fingertips back then, it was a long time before its time.
I know it sounds very boasty, but it's all out there to be substantiated. I've got it all here. I've actually the National Pig Association want me to write a book and do something, but I never got around to it. But we've got a lot of evidence here in photography, in photographs and write-ups. Anyway, we were exporting a tremendous lot of pigs, and a lot of these foreigners used to make for us straight. If they couldn't buy with us, they'd move elsewhere. But we were drawing most of the top breeders abroad never would miss us off their shopping list, and we used to have a very good export demand. In fact, interesting thing is, Andy, while we were selecting to try and breed this very, very lean, muscly pig, it was genetically really muscly, we did unfortunately walk into what they call the old stress gene, did raise its head, and which is inevitable. You're likely to introduce a stress gene, and you're not aware of it until you get stress tests later.
Okay.
But, that was begin to creep in, and it's only found on the extreme muscle strains.
Just clarify that to us, Lionel. Stress? Are we talking stress within the meat or stress within the animal?
Stress within the animal.
Okay.
I mean, you could tell that they'd go all red, and you knew if you stressed them. I'm talking about if they were really high in halothane, the halothane gene they call it. They could even die in your arms when you're tattooing them.
Really?
That was getting a bit scary. And I had an American come over from the Ohio State University to buy some boars, and he said, he requested could I select about 8 or 10? He said, I only need about 5, maybe 6. But could I take blood samples, take them back to Ohio, and test them for the halothane stress gene? Because he said, your pigs have got so much muscle and meat on them that it'd be difficult, I would have thought, he said, to breed them without the risk of that gene raising its head somewhere.
Wow.
And so, I knew I'd got it. It was still in the lowest percentage, but it was around. And so I allowed him to do that. He took the samples back, and I think he selected 8 or 9, but he managed to keep about 6 of them. I think there's about 3 reactors, and that was fair enough. It was a good order, and but he came back to me. He said, "Would you like to get rid of the halothane gene from rid it from your pig herd?" I said, "Well, too true, I would." I said, "As long as I don't lose all the muscling." And he said, "Well, I tell you what, I'll test all your breeding herd free of charge."
Yeah.
And he said, "You just get your vet to come and take the samples and send them off to us over here, and we'll test the whole lot for you." That was an extremely interesting operation. And I think about 25% were reactors, or maybe a few more, but it was under 30% anyway. But it was getting too many to please me anyway. And so we did lose a percentage of the extreme, because the ones that reacted were the most extreme muscle pigs,
Yeah.
But that was great. And it cost me nothing other than just for my vet to come and do the job, and a post-incision package sort of thing. And I thought it was a wonderful gesture. And I think I was one of the first breeders in the UK to completely clean it out.
Right.
And but there were people out there who were starting to pick up on the fact that I had the stress gene in the herd. It wasn't all wonderful. Lionel Organ winning all these car competitions sort of thing, and live shows. And there was a bit of the companies used to try their utmost to sort of put me down because I did decline offers from. I was JSR tried to buy me out on
Right.
and tried to bait me with offers, and I refused. With hindsight, I wish I hadn't refused. But it wasn't many years after that the industry collapsed.
Yeah,
but
JSR were a big outfit when they're big boys. And if I can just mention, we've got one chap that you'll know him that's been on our podcast with regards to the Beltex sheep. It's a chap called Jurgen de Poit in Belgium, and he's doing a lot of experimentation with the double muscle gene in pigs, in the P-train pigs. And is this? I mean, I've never heard this. Is it antagonistic to this gene with all muscle pigs, or is that just something that's now been ironed out altogether?
I don't know. Well, I mean, we were breeding in the dark. We didn't know which were carrying it and which weren't. I mean, no, it's not all muscle pigs carry it. No. It's a matter of finding out which ones have got it, which was so surprisingly good. Okay. To get the opportunities to do it, because it was starting to worry us. And it came along so simple, but I couldn't fully cash in on it for long because, as I say, the industry collapsed, and I sold to my multiplier. The whole lot went one.
And you cleared the pigs out. And of course, by that time, you're into what more people will know you for, of course, was the Charollais sheep. And you went into those fairly early doors, I think, when they came into the country. And we've had a podcast on the history of the Charollais before, and Jonathan Barber's involvement and what have you. But I mean, you would be one of Southam would be one of the first flocks on the team sheep, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we were quite early. I think they've been going about 10 years when we came in, but. A breed doesn't sort of take off that quick. It didn't in those days. There was always a doubters out there. But it gradually gained momentum as people realised the benefits and what it had to offer. But I came in, registered my first Charollais in 1986. Yes, okay. I started my clean flock in 1985, a year earlier. That's right.
Okay. So the cleans were before those, and of course you became one of the hard men to beat in the Charollais ring. Again, that's again where we've crossed paths. The Royal Show would be your stomping ground. You'd be everybody would quiver when they saw one of your sheep coming out in there. But also a bit like your pigs, I suppose. Your Charollais sheep were renowned to go on and breed, weren't they? And you had some good sales into a lot of top flocks.
Yeah, a lot of people were surprised that I packed my bags and moved to Wales, actually, but. I think it was the best thing I ever did for my Charollais. I'd been going a good many years, before I left. But I made major strides of improvement took place after I moved to Wales. Not creating Wales. It was just I was just sort of reaping the benefit of my breeding program, which I've been going for years.
And of course, you'd have a lot more grass. And again, for our listener doesn't realise that you moved from Cheltenham down near Carmarthen, I think. So it's a couple of 100 miles switch and a totally different countryside down there to where you were at before, I guess.
Yeah, we always got grass here. I mean, Pembrokeshire even more so. And I think you don't know winter exists in West Pembrokeshire, but on the coastal areas. But we've got a lot of grass we grow here. We don't suffer from droughts. Never have since I've been here. We suffer from too much rain occasionally. But no, I think it was a wonderful move I decided to do. And when I could really concentrate on the Charollais. I kept the clean breed at the same time. But they were taking more of a back seat when I was really making big strides with Charollais. And again, I more or less pursued the sort of Charollais that I had in mind. And when I moved here, everybody told me, you won't sell those things down here. They're too nash. Nobody wants them. You'll have to sell them in England.
I was talking to a Texel breeder the other day who had been a pig breeder before he became a Texel breeder, and he said the pig breeding gave him such great grounding, and the fact that everything was recorded as well, all things naturally written down. And I guess you'd go down the same route with your Charollais, would you, where recording was important? Oh,
yes, I did record. I record everything. I'm not sure that you can. We found the same with pigs. You can't breed and select on index alone. It's only a tool to guide you. If you try going down the road where you just select purely on index and stick rigidly to that, you'll not produce what the market really wants at the end of the day, because we've very few blind customers out there. And although I did have one, and he could see more with his feel of his hands than most people could see with their eyes. But he used to come over from the Isle of Wight and buy boars.
Really?
But anyway, he's an amazing man. But nevertheless, it's it's a tool, or the recording. There are people that try and use it as the be all and end all, and the only way to select, but they don't produce then what your customer wants to look at. And I'm afraid you'll never change human nature. The customer will always want to be proud of what he buys, and he puts out there for his neighbours to come and criticise.
Well, just for yourself as well. You've got to go and look at the animals every day. You want something you want to look at, don't you? And of course, the other tool that you would have at your disposal back then, and still is, of course, is the show ring. And you just earned your spurs, as I said, at the Royal, and you'd be a fearful man to beat there. And what did you win the Royal? What sort of successes did you get with your Charollais? I know you were always there or thereabouts.
Well, Welsh, we won interbreed champions there a few times.
Okay.
And when I came here, I had already achieved one interbreed there with a Charollais UI bred. And she was also interbreed pairs and supreme breed champion, and that for 2 years. And that would have been just upon the time we came here. I think the first time she won there was before I moved, and the second time was after. But maybe wrong. My memory isn't as strong as it used to be. But no, I got so many champions at the Royal Welsh over the years. That was my target, was to because it's more meaningful with sheep to win major shows like that than it was with a pig.
You're being very modest, and again, to our listener, the Royal Welsh would probably be the biggest sheep show in the world by quite a bit, I would say, and to win that interbreed, we were fortunate enough to win the pairs interbreed, I think in 1992 with a pair of Blue Domains, but it is a big accolade to win that. You've got 70 breeds of sheep or something there of one sort and other, as well as just as hundreds of breeds of sheep in your class. I mean, there'd be 200 Charollais at the Welsh, wouldn't there? At one time there would be anyway.
Yes, just let me be clear. All the years I've showed at the Royal Welsh, I never won the Supreme single. I've won the Supreme pairs, or submitted one of the pair, but on several occasions, both the pairs. On several occasions I've won that. And on the group of three, could seem to achieve all those. And breed champions, I won the Charollais Breed Championship on several occasions, and the clean, even sometimes in the same year, both breeds, but never achieved a single.
Okay. Come on to your cleans in a minute, and we're going back to, sticking with the Charollais, should I say, you dispersed the flock initially, I think, in 2009. Was that on farm sale, I think, wasn't it? And top price female went to Ingram's at Lugidona, who again have been on this programme, and I think they sold a lamb out of one of those for about 7,000. So it was a pretty good start to your dispersal, but you didn't stop there, did it? No,
there was actually, I'll tell you, Peter Vaughan came and bought quite a lot of good stuff here as well, and he sold a ram out of a ewe he bought in our sale for $7,500, I think. Ingram's, yes, they bought. I won't tell you the whole story; it could take too long. But they did buy a ewe over the phone at my recommendation, and they rang up, said couldn't make the sale. This is back in the early noughties, and can't make the sale, but we'd like you to. Can you recommend a couple of ewes? And they said, we don't want to pay too much,
That doesn't sound like the Ingrams I know.
Yeah, and it's before they got to it, the great heights they've reached now. It may have helped them to get to those heights. But, yes, they said, I won't say what they wanted, what they prepared to pay, but anyway. But I managed to I recommend a couple that they wanted them from the spring-born ones. So they thought the expensive ones would come from the December-born flock. And they said, well, that one's only got a single in. We really want two. I said, well, it'll be a champion, It's a good ewe. Take my word for it. And anyway, they did buy them, and they didn't have to pay too much for them. And the one I was carrying a single it went to the Premier sale and made 5,000 top price. Yeah. And that was by Bob the Builder. She was in lamb too, so it's a homebred ram, Bob the Builder. He was he was also a breed champion at the Royal Welsh in his day. And that Bob the Builder was probably one of the most famous rams we bred because everybody was buying Bob the Builder stuff off me. But anyway, that was the first Bob the Builder son to appear.
Okay.
Yeah, I took a couple of Bob the Builders there, but they only made 3,000 odd, and but that yes, they got 5,000 at top price. I think it was on everything as well. It's good as well.
Good.
In the show, but it was interesting because they weren't hardly heard of themselves in those days, and you know, and they didn't want to pay too much, you know, but they've now. They're riding very high.
Certainly are riding very high. You're right. As you said, with a bit of your breeding underpinning them, you'd be proud of that. And he said you had a...
Yeah, they bought semen off me as well, quite a bit.
You had a second dispersal then, I think, in 2010. That'd probably be the Gimmer lambs you hadn't sold the year before, I guess. And I think...
We used to lamb twice, once with the AI'd and lambed in December, and the ones that didn't hold way I went and lambed in the spring flock where they were top naturally, and they were sold. They were the older ewes more or less, and the younger ewes usually they take to AI better than the old timers. So they were being lambing. Mostly the younger ewes were going into December lambing AI's flock.
And I think I'm right in thinking Esmore Evans took 2 or 3 of the top price lots out of that one. That'd probably be him just getting started.
They did the last sale, yeah. That's him. He paid over 4,000 at that sale, and he took a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a good customer. We put him up for the night. Was quite pleased to do that.
Well, Esmore doesn't throw his money about unless he thinks it's right. That's for sure. But
well, he actually, he was gone back in again. He'd been in them years previous.
That's
actually.
right.
I didn't even know him in those days, but somebody told him he should come to that sale, and he did. Thank goodness. He was a good person to have, and he's taking the breed pretty serious now. He's getting some big prices himself now. But no, actually, when I came to Wales, we put up a big shed, and the intention was to have it designed as suitable to hold sales. This was my long-term plan. I know I had a lot of breeders said, "Oh, you mustn't sell them down here. It's waste of money. You go to Cardiff and that." But anyway, I ignored that, and I went ahead. And some of these sales, we used to sell every other year. We'd sell over 100 in lamb, shirl, and ewes,
wow.
including our show team. And in between years, we would top our own flock.
Build them up, yeah.
And you can only do this if your sheep are near the top of the job, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be able to rely on the in-between year to be necessarily good enough as But you've got to be sure you've reached a level where you're producing and you can predict to produce as good a sheep next year as you did this year, and so on.
Okay.
And I thought we were into that situation. We could rely on the in-between years to top our flock up. And those sales, we started having, and we did have some of them where they averaged over 1,000 apiece.
Yeah.
And that was a dream come true. Really.
Nice work if you can get it. Yeah, and no lambing that year as well. So you'd probably go and put your feet up or go on holiday, I guess.
Yes. But that that was in every other year, biennial sales, you might say. We did have a ram sale. Also, we used to sell somewhere around about 120 rams in an evening sale at the end of August. We ran that just to aim at the local commercial boys, and whereas the female sale, which is every other year, was aimed at the pedigree people. And we used to do a lot of buyers from Scotland and Ireland, and some, even we have actually exported to France, but Charollais semen that was. But anyway. Those sales were very successful, regardless of all the advice I ignored.
You've ignored a lot of advice, Lionel. It's not done you any harm.
Well, when I came here, the Charollais breed was very small. It was the lowest membership of all the 8 regions, and after I'd been here and had these sales for about 10 years, over a period of 10 years or so, the Charollais sheep membership was highest region in the country, in the UK, and They must have attributed quite a bit of that to me because the Charollais Society awarded me the Terry Robinson Award for somebody they consider made a major contribution to improving
Well done. Well
you know,
done. Of course, Terry Robinson, again, those don't know, was an Irishman and a great breeder as well. That's a superb award to win. If we go on to the cleans that you mentioned, I didn't realise you started them that long ago. And when we talk about these sales, would that be just Charollais, or would you have cleans in those sales as well?
No, just Charollais.
Okay.
I just sell a few clean rams in the on-farm sale, but they were the lower end that I didn't. Otherwise, they went through society sales again.
And as I said, you dispersed the Charollais in 2010, but here we are 12 years later and you've still got the clean, so you must think a lot of them. Lionel, tell us a bit more about them.
I think the clean is virtually one of the most, in my lifetime, one of the most successful breed developments that took place in the sheep industry. It was it was just some forward-thinking group of breeders in the Clean Peninsula, I think Anglesey maybe as well, got together and they took a good many breeds and they pulled them all, the breeding together, and selected and culled over quite a lot of years. It didn't do it quickly. And eventually they got a standard type which seemed to be got itself into a situation where it was reliably established as a breed without wandering in wrong directions like that. And they released it onto the market. And I had a Welsh Shepherd at the time, and he got me to try some, and I thought I'll keep them just to keep him happy, but I didn't think they had much future. They were very small, and they were hyper prolific, and two things that you well, at that time of day, we were just talking about raising the carcass weight to about 40 kilos on the lambs and that sort of thing, and they didn't reach that. They were too small, and if you fed them to a lot of food to try and make them grow, they just put it on in fat. But they had this wonderful mothering ability. They were amazing. Anyway, I kept them going. And again, as I said before, without being too boasty, I did a hell of a lot of pioneer work on the clean breed to make them bigger and less prolific. Mm-hmm. And that sounds a strange thing you want to try and make a breed less prolific, but that was seriously needed in the clean breed. Well,
you do. Otherwise, if you try and get 200%, you end up with 100 bloody triplets, don't you? And you don't want those, so that's the problem.
Certainly not. Anyway, no, I've always got too many now. I mean, the cleans now, when we scan them, they usually average around 200%. I mean, we used to talk about 230 or 40%. Wow. Ridiculous. It is a nightmare.
And they're a hardy sheep for the hill. We've had Neil McGowan on this program here, who's a big Lleyn cattle breeder, but also, the cleans is his bread and butter. I think he runs 800 of them, and they'll run to a hell of a height on a hill, and they'll lamb on their own. And I suppose, again, that comes down. You don't want too many. You want triplets out on the hill in the middle of March, snow time.
No, they've done a great deal of good work for the breed, and they're good ambassadors for the breed. The McGowans. They even bought a tup off me 3 years ago now. I think. They're getting the benefits. I hope they are getting the benefits now.
Mm-hmm. And how many cleans are you running now, Lionel?
Oh, not many. I've only lambed down 130 this year.
Okay, but if you don't mind me saying, I called you a veteran when we came on the show, but you're still in there in the lambing shed. You're doing them yourself. Did you say? I think you were lambing a sheep at 3 o'clock this morning, so you're still in hands-on.
Yeah, well, it happens to be. I happen to be the one that goes out nights at the moment, because I had a woman here, used to work for me for years on the pigs at Cheltenham, but she comes and does lambing for about 2.5 weeks at night. Uh-huh. And so I actually, and having had a knee replacement in December, it's not really strong enough to...
Did the doctor by any chance tell you not to do any lambing this year?
I think I've been advised on a few things which I do my best to abide by. It was very difficult when you see a sheep there needs help. But yeah, I don't get them down nowadays. I just stand them up and put a halter on.
Oh, right.
I have a woman actually who works for me a lot most of the time, and she loves sheep. She just lives sheep, and she came to me 21 years ago, foot and mouth year when it was, and she wasn't particularly any good at the time, but I've been very patient with her, and she's turned into a hell of a good girl, and I can leave her to do most things now. So I'm not doing it all myself now, but
She
I
probably tells
still
you to
have a
keep out the road, I expect, Lionel, like most of the women
yes,
do.
no, well, that's more or less
That's
the
probably advice you
situation.
won't take
Well,
either, I expect. You've been a bit of a rebel over the years, and nice to see you've still got a bit of mischief about you, but I can imagine that you've been banished from the shed there when she's taking charge.
yes, there. See, it was a bit of women were ruling at lambing time. I had the night lammer used to they'd cross paths before she'd go home, and they used to sort me over quite a bit and say they didn't want me down there. They could manage, but the brain's still there to do all the breeding planning and all this. It's still I'm trying to breed what I consider is a perfect clean, and I can't give up yet because as long as the target's still there to aim at, we're getting close. We're getting to like them. We're very, very much so, and we try and breed. Well, just breeding a clean that it's like everything else. So I don't want the biggest back end and all this sort of thing. We can do that easily if you cross them with Beltex or something. But no, they must stay pure as we can keep them. Hopefully, you're relying on other people's honesty, but and try and improve them by purely hard selection.
And again, would you be running a fairly closed flock on those? So using a lot of your own replacement tups?
Well, strangely, yeah, I kept my best yearling last year, so I got quite a few lambs undergoing by him. I bought the champion ram from Dylan Jones from Huncliffe, and it was by one of my rams that had been champion at. He bought it champion.
I'm sniggering because that's quite a common thing, isn't it, to buy your own breeding back in?
Well, yes, I've got plenty of aren't too closely related, and he's produced some very good lambs this year.
Good.
And also this is his first crop, and so is his shearling, obviously. And I've got an old ram here which just keeps turning out amazing clean sheep every year, and he's doing me. He's the cheapest ram I ever bought, the best ram I ever bought, and a lot of his sons have left me and gone into some of the top flocks in the breed.
Right. And where would your sales be? I know you obviously some online sales. Where's the main, again, for our uninitiated listener here, of which a lot of them have taken, I've had comments to people saying, tell me more about these clean sheep, because there's a lot of interest in the breeding. Where would they go to buy those these days, Lionel? Where's your main sale?
Well, the clean breed is an MB accredited breed, and all the sales have to be MB accredited. And it's a pure breed, and they are a victim of their own success in a way, because there's a lot of massive commercial clean flocks around, and there's tremendous demand for cleans. Well, a lot of these big commercial flocks are setting up, but they close the door and only bring in tups eventually, and they keep, some of them maybe 1,000 ewes. They keep a couple of hundred nucleus of their best young ewes to breed the replacements to top up the commercial section. They just go out for tups, and it's that is the problem. If you're selling mules, they're a crossbred, and the commercial man has to keep going back to the source. But with the clean end, they're very popular for these people who like closed flocks. That's a great idea, and it's a credit to the clean. But the clean breed suffers for it.
Limits your female market, of course. Yeah,
it does actually, but they're still selling very, very well, and probably they're still the highest averaging females out there. But the volume isn't as big as it used to be, because when we used to sell sort of 4,000 or 5,000 at Carlisle and Britton and these sort of things, in the female autumn sales, it was a lot of these people were buying these sheep to get into big commercial situations.
Yeah, get started and then close it up. And are we saying Carlisle is one of your main sales? You didn't actually tell me where the main sale is.
Well, Ruthin really is a society's recognised, because it's a legacy of the old Anglesey sow up at Gerwin up in Anglesey. Moved to Ruthin to be eventually to make it more central for people, because the breed was moving its base more or less. They were the popularity was growing so fast in Scotland and the
I was
North
going to say
England.
there's a lot of interest in the breed in Scotland and Northern Ireland, isn't it? And Southern Ireland, I think, as well now.
Oh yeah, I sell a lot of sheep to Ireland. Have done over the years, recent years, and judged there and everything. But yeah, they love it. They love them over there. They are they're a good workhorse. And they say, the saying these days is they do exactly what it says on the tin.
That's exactly right. I think that and the Ling, and I can see when we go back to Neil McGowan, you can see why the two of those breeds are going hand in hand, and it's a low input
the thing
job.
is, you get some people, they look at the thing, so it's not back end. All right, you just buy clean. You can put your terminal sire on. You'll have you can't get better at the, your top grade carcasses and conformation, E3L or and that sort of thing. You can't better that, and you'll achieve just that whether you put your big, heavy back-ended terminal sires on them. You'll get just what you want. You don't need the female to go there to do it. It'll be done with one cross, and once you achieve that, the E grades, there's no grade above E. So why, you don't need to beef up your female and spoil its mothering and natural genetic mothering ability.
And you talk about a terminal sire. I'd imagine it crosses well with a Charollais too, and you must have done some of that over the years.
Oh yeah, wonderful cross, yeah. Because the great thing about the Charollais, it won't win carcass competitions like the Beltex and that sort of thing. But in the real world out there, it's the loin is very important. The length of loin you produce from your Charollais is far longer loin than you produce from your big back-ended Beltex. I know you like Beltex.
No, I breed Charollais.
Oh yeah, you're a Charolais man. Anyway,
only here in France, but nothing pedigree, but we do breed them here.
The Charollais, it grows like hell. I know it eats well. It's got a good appetite, but it puts a tremendous growth into them as well, and you get this. Now, let me go back to the carcass competition with the pigs. I did touch on the fact that one of the essential things was not only getting a high score for jigget and loin muscle and all that. You needed the length for weight marks. I did touch on this, and I meant one thing that disappointed me with a sheep carcass competition. There's never been a length for weight scale in the. I tried to persuade the powers that be to incorporate it, but they would never accept it. And so therefore, if you look at that along a carcass line, it's usually not the longest that wins it. But you see, the longest is probably producing far more loin meat.
Absolutely, far more weight, I would say, as well. We always used to talk about the extra rib, didn't you, in a show sheep, and that extra rib is going to produce you an extra 3 or 4 kilos.
You see, length has been ignored in sheep carcass competitions. I'm disappointed, but it's never been there. And that if there was a length for weight mark, years ago, as I'd been successful with the pigs in carcass competitions, I was invited by the Charollais Society to try an experiment, which I got involved in for a bit. Was to go and do some breeding to try and win carcass competitions with the Charollais, which were being outstripped by Texan and the early days then and Beltex. Now, I did agree to do this, and we bought. They gave me a sort of an open check to go and buy 1 or 2 rams in France with extreme muscling. Perhaps wouldn't be looked at by the pedigree breeder, but possibly where they probably bred a bit close, and because it's not a very gigantic breed numerically over there, and that's what we did. And I started producing some of these, and I won the odd carcass competition, not a Smithfield show type, but smaller ones, at county shows. But I realised, and I said to the Charollais people that this is not going anywhere. There's no length for weight marks, and until they incorporate some length for weight, we're going to have to. Only way we're going to compete against Beltex and extreme muscle type carcasses is to inbreed and produce a short sheep, but won't put on the weight gain that you get from the length and power of the Charollais. And I said, I think you're going to achieve nothing by winning those cash competitions if we did that. And the only way we're going to win is to produce a Beltex type sheep because of that one.
Exactly, a reinventing was already there.
One
right?
item there is missing: length for weight on the in the carcass scoring system. And it's still not there. Okay. And anyway, I asked him, I said, do you mind, I don't want to go down this road. It's going to, if we win cash competitions, I say we've achieved the wrong type of sheep for what we should. We're going to be losing all the other great benefits of the breed. And if we start shortening them, you won't get the weight gain and the length of loin carcass in the amount of loin you produce.
Lionel, that's very wise words from a man with a lot of years' experience in that business, more so than most, and hopefully some of the people in here will just take a bit of that on board. And Lionel, a modest man as you are, as I said earlier, but I think amongst your Welsh colleagues there, one of them put you forward for a top award. Tell me a bit more about that.
He approached me and asked me if I would accept an honour to become a Fellow of the Royal Societies. But it is awarded to people regarded or recognised as having made major improvements to the Welsh agriculture, whether not necessarily livestock, but mainly is, to the Welsh agricultural. One asked me if I would accept the award if I was considered, up to it, and that was because I take a great pride in being a grass grower of quality maize and all this. I'm not just leave the old lays down and been here for 100 years sort of thing. I like to get a response from my soil. Anyway, eventually I was approached and I had two professors grilled me all day, and they looked at my farm, they looked at my animals and put me through it all day and tested me on just about every bloody thing is possible. So I thought that when they went, I said to Jenny, I said, that's it then. I don't expect I'll hear another thing. They put me through hell. And because I never went to any university or college. I was homegrown. Anyway, but anyway, went all through the procedure, and I got the award. And
that was, when was that?
Oh, 2013, I became a Fellow of the Royal Society. Okay. Yeah.
Letters after your name.
Yes, I got them eventually. Didn't even go to university, but I got them.
Great to be recognised, as you said. You've done. When you look back on it, and obviously you know that, but a lot of people maybe don't. That you realise what you have contributed. And Lionel, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you this last hour. Superb, and I'm glad to know that you're alive and well, and it's still raining in South Wales. And hopefully we'll catch up with you at the Royal Welsh Show.
I'm hoping to get there. I don't think I'll be exhibiting. They've been talking to me. They said, "Go on, you've got to go. You always went. I said, you get to the age." I couldn't. You see, in the last few years, I've had other people showing for me. Only just clean, I've shown, obviously, and we didn't quite win a championship this last year or two, but because I think I need to be on the end of the halter. I've just hired some young farmers to do it. They're good. They do it with. They love doing it, but.
I'll gladly give you a hand if you're stuck there. I'll be there with a few sheep as well. But and also with your knee, if you're slowing down a little bit when you pass my pen line, I'll sit on the box and we'll share a time.
I'm looking forward to that. I really am. And it is an amazing show. I've been to shows in other parts of the world, but there's nothing like the Royal Welsh Show. In fact, I've judged the Charollais breed twice and the clean breed twice. I don't think too many breeders have judged those twice, but it must have. I mustn't have done everything wrong. They wouldn't have invited me back.
Lionel, we'll look forward to seeing you there, and thanks again for taking your time.
Thank you, Andy. It's lovely to have a chat with you, and I just look forward to meeting you at the Royal Welsh. Okay.
Well, thank you for listening to what I believe was a really enjoyable episode of Top Lines and Tails this week. As always, we're extremely thankful to Harborough for their sponsorship, and Harborough are suppliers and manufacturers of livestock nutrition and nutritional solutions. And during these times of uncertainty and spiralling input costs, why not give Harborough a quick call and maybe have a chat through and see how they can help you keep things under control. So thank you, Harborough. And if you want more information on Harborough, of course, you can find them on harborough.co.uk or on Facebook. And with regards to the Top Lines and Tails, please tune into our Top Lines and Tails Facebook page, where you'll find photographs and other documents to back up this episode and other episodes.